County Show at Tavistock.
Markets.
Wool sheep.
Kingsbridge Fair Week.
The judges came around.
Living off the land, 100 years of farming in South Devon. Episode 5, County Show. Visits to farming fairs and markets. Prize-winning sheep.
Showing used to be quite an important part of our life, really. I can remember when we were at South Devon, my mother coming out and saying to Father and I one day, on a Sunday, you two don't know the difference between Sunday and the rest of the week. Because during the week time, we were doing the farm work, and Sundays we were getting the sheep ready to show for the rest of the summer, really. And we didn't just used to start that in April time, we would be doing that all the winter. Just getting the sheep, making sure that every week, there was something always needed doing to them. And that's really, I suppose, how you talk about precision, and that was the way we hoped to get the superlatives in the stock at the end of the day. The first show that I can remember going to in 1949 was the Devon County Show at Tavistock. I can remember now driving into the Tavistock Square, going up the hill, and the show was up on the left and the right hand side as we left Tavistock. In those days, all the shows, the Devon County, the Royal Cornwall, the Bath and West, and the Royal Show of England moved around all over different parts of their own area. The first time I could drive a lorry, I drove to Newcastle. There wasn't any motorways in those days. Up the A30, up as far as Bedford and Nottingham, then up the A1 to Newcastle. We left home at 5 o'clock in the morning and got to Newcastle at 10:15 at night. They had the Royal Show at Newcastle 2 years running. The first year I wasn't driving, the second year I was driving. We would take, I suppose, it'd be about 20 sheep in total, which would be of mixed ages.
But you took others as well, though, didn't you?
Yeah, we were used to take one other breeder of another breed, grey-faced Dartmoors. It used to be quite hilarious, some of the things we'd done. Talking this year reminds me of the coronation year, and this is the first time ever we shown at the Bath and West, was when the coronation year, and the Bath and West show was at Bath. Obviously there wasn't any televisions much around then, and my cousin came with me, and Edward Caunter. We thought we would like to see the coronation. So we went around to one or two marquees, and they're obviously all shut up, but we could hear them showing the coronation on the inside. So my cousin and I decided we'd crawl underneath the canvas of the marquee to get inside. And this particular one we crawled in under, we hadn't been there more than a few minutes, and we felt somebody inside grab our neck collars and said, "If you young devils want to see it, come on in." And he pulled us in by our shirt collar. So we stayed there and watched it all the time it was on. So that was quite something really in those days. We won quite a bit over the years. In those days, the South Devon sheep, as they were known, weren't quite so nationally recognised. But we had the champion of the breed on many occasions at the Royal. Two sheep breeds amalgamated in the late 70s. The South Devon sheep, which is quite a bit bigger sheep, and the Devon Longwool. The two breeds amalgamated, and they called them the Devon and Cornwall Longwools. That helped the two breeds significantly. They then soon became quite nationally well known. There used to be three of us that were very keen exhibitors. There's people called the Drake brothers, and then there's J.A. Dart Limited, which is the cousin, and ourselves. And the three of us were very strong competitors against each other. And then usually the champion of our breed then stood a significant chance of winning the Supreme at the Royal. And the breed done that on 3 occasions, I think. And I was involved in that twice. They used to have a shortlist every year, and we finished in the top 3 6 years running, the Supreme in the UK. That was really through the amalgamation of the two breeds. There's one section in our breed called it a ram 2 shear in its full fleece. And that was a very significant exhibit because that one had about, one of ours in particular had 18 kilos of wool on it, which is 18 months growth of wool, and that one was really quite a spectacle to see in front of the other breeds. Fleeces took a lot of looking after, and you really had to separate out all the locks, as we call it, because they soon get knotted together, tied together, so those locks had to be free, so that when the judge examined them, he could open the fleece up and see right into the skin, which is quite important. But that was an ongoing thing because we really did have to look after them. Business-wise, for our breed, it wasn't significant. But some of the other breeds, like the Suffolks or the Texas, it always meant a lot more, because I think there were more money people in those breeds than there was in our people.
You need to remember that the Devon Cornwall Longhorn is a wool sheep.
Yes.
And the others, the Suffolk and the Texas, are what they call the terminal size, of what you get your fat lambs or butchered lambs, your meat. So they always, and there was like Dad was saying, there's a lot of money involved in those particular breeds, and they set up consortiums and they'll go and they'll spend thousands on these particular rams. On the long wool, it's a bit of a minority, really. It's a rare breed. It's not even now, it never has been. Well, it hasn't been for a long time. They're not easy to manage, basically. No. The contract shearers didn't like shearing them because there's so much wool on the heads and all down the legs and on the bellies. A lot of these other breeds haven't got that, you see. So the contract shearers can shear a lot more sheep than they can the long ones. That's really, I've always maintained, it didn't help the survival of the breed. But for many years, the wool was a very minority part of the sheep, really. Well, obviously it still is now, because when you start talking about the value of a lamb carcass, you're talking about 90 or 100 pound, and the average, I suppose, fleece of that would be about 5 pounds. So it's quite a significant difference. I was lucky enough to represent the Southwest region on the British Wool Marketing Board for 17 years. So I had a bit of an insight into the wool situation in Great Britain, really. So I used to travel to Bradford every month for 17 years. When I first joined the board, we were marketing like 50 million kilos. We're now down to 30 million kilos, which is quite a significant drop. But it's not only in the UK, worldwide, the wool production's gone down significantly. In New Zealand, there was like 75 million sheep. Now we're back to 33 or 4 million. In all the rest of the other countries in the world, sheep numbers have gone down quite significantly.
Market Day.
All the calves father reared were fattened off as beef and went to Kingsbridge Market. Father used to take him into Kingsbridge Market. He always liked his animals to be fairly mature and big. And he got in Kingsbridge Market one day and somebody said to Dad, "Jack, why is your bullocks always so big?" So Father said, "Well, 'tis like this." He said, "If you got a big hole in your bank balance, you need a big bullock to fill up the hole in your bank balance."
Before the axing of the railway at Kingsbridge, which I would have been 17 when it was axed, before that there was Kingsbridge Market went on till the 90s, but the big cattle store cattle market of the year was at Kingsbridge Fair, and at Kingsbridge Fair there could be anything up to 1,000 cattle go through Kingsbridge Market in one day, and many of those used to go by train in those days before the railways acts, used to go by train up country to other farms, and of course after the axing of the railways it meant more lorries on the road, and we still used to have the Kingbridge Fair, and it still was probably 600 or 700 cattle right up until the 90s. But of course, markets have become few and far between, the same as abattoirs. And it's understandable why it's happened, but I don't know whether it is healthy, because it means more travelling for the animals, because the markets and the abattoirs are more sparse, so there's more travelling for the animals. But of course, when they want to travel, they need to have a big load.
But Kingsbridge, when it was Kingsbridge Fair Week, your dad always used to sell 40, 50 cattle, and they always walked into Kingsbridge. Weren't they? They were the last ones to do that.
Yes, we used to.
The family used to help.
The family and maybe friends, and we would take the cattle in probably in two sections of about 20, 25 in each section into Kingsbridge to the market. We walked them in the back road, and then eventually across the quay. We used to get, in latter years, police assistance just to stop the traffic for 5 minutes while we're driving them through, and it was always a great attraction for the public. They loved it. I hated it because I was afraid something would go wrong. And eventually, the last time we ever did it was when my dad bought some more cattle and decided to have them here on the farm from August to November, and I don't think they really got used to being domesticated. And we were on the way to Kingsbridge Market, and one of them decided to bolt out of the herd, and half the herd followed him, and they nearly finished up in Summerfield's car park. Eventually they finished up in the farmer's field near the hospital, and we had to go to the farm. I think it was later in the day, I can't remember now, with a lorry and load them. And my dad was not well enough to be able to walk the cattle in those days, and I said to him I didn't want the responsibility of it anymore. It was time to move on. So, but it wasn't long after that the market closed down anyway. Now our animals go to either Newton Abbot Market or Exeter Market or straight to abattoir. And in some cases the lambs go to the local butcher. But there again, whereas the local butcher used to be just, an abattoir used to be just 1 mile from us, but now the nearest is at Ashburton, which is 18 or 20 miles. So our lambs actually go to Ashburton and come back to Kingsbridge to the local shop, but that's not all of them. That's just if he wants some.
I remember Father also told me about when he took a bull into Kingsbridge Market to be sold, and he sold the bull, and he said it had to go away on a train. So he said, are we going to get the bull up to the train? So Father said, oh, no problem, I'll walk up. So Father just led the bull up and into the carriage, and off it went. So things were a bit different from what they are today.
Out and about.
Of course, over the years we had less staff. We finished up with just one employee, and now we haven't any employees at all, and very few farms have. Only really the very big farms have got employees. It's become uneconomical to have somebody that you have to pay for them while they're on holiday, because on a farm you really have to be on duty all the time, and holidays don't really come into it. Having said that, I do think it's important for the farmers themselves to have a holiday if they can. But a lot of farmers are in love with their farm and don't really look to take a holiday.
I can't remember until I started school, and that must have been when I was about 5. I was born in 24, so it was probably 30 before I can really remember. We had to walk, and, there was the 3 of us, and we used to meet our friends, other neighbours. There'd be a gate at the end of our lane where we met the others, and whoever went on first had to put a stone on the gate, and then you'd know they'd gone on, you see. You always had to remember to take a stone off when you came back in the evening to make sure you started with a clean plate in the morning. One of the girls I went to school with, she lived nearly a mile further back the road from me, and she rode a pony from Lower Norton to Stoke Fleming. Dear little pony, Tiny he was called. Yes, I remember sort of going to school at Stoke Fleming. We had a wonderful tutor, she was marvellous. And the school teachers had a school house. The school mistress or master used to live in the school house, which was, well, adjacent to the school. We had a headmistress, and then her husband used to tutor the boys with gardening and things. She was a wonderful, wonderful teacher. And then we had another teacher that used to teach the juniors, and she lived at Holwell. And she used to catch the bus Monday mornings from Holwell. There were buses running then, and she used to get off at Norton, and she used to walk with us Monday mornings to school, and then she used to lodge with somebody at Stoke Fleming during the week, and then walk home Fridays and catch a bus from Norton back to Holwell. You see, it's no distance today. You can't believe, it's such silly things, really. And we enjoyed the sports at school, I remember. I remember there were big celebrations it would have been the coronation of King George V and Queen Mary. And there were great celebrations, and there were sports, and we all had a mug. Mine's up there somewhere.
When I was young, of course, we didn't have television, which probably isn't good that we've got too much television, too many programmes to watch. And it was wonderful to have a day out on the beach, and I did go with my family to the beach occasionally, and we'd meet up with my parents' friends with their family, and of course my cousins, and we would have days out on the on the beach, and especially on Dartmoor, because my father, he loved Dartmoor anyway, and it was nice to have days off. And Devon County Show, or even Royal Cornwall Show, was a special day out, and it was a long way to Exeter from Kingsbridge for the Devon County Show before we had decent roads. And well, I could go as far as to say I went all the way when I was 17 to London, and also in the same year to Kidderminster to see the sugar beet factory with my father. And I hadn't really been out of Devon and Cornwall until I was 17, and I probably wouldn't be alone either. My friends at school, if they had been further than Bristol, they probably, by today's terms, gone to New Zealand, for instance. It was something to be able to travel a long way when I was younger.
Well, yeah, when I was growing up here, you didn't go out very much. We spent a lot of time on the farm here, playing in the woods, building camps. Used to go fishing down the valley, down the river, on the River Gara. Never seemed to go very far. And when we did go out, usually to visit an uncle or aunt, and you had to dress up in your best suit. Did go on several trips with the local primary school. There was 2 or 3 benefactors in the village used to provide money for trips out for the school children. So we went to Buckland Abbey. I can remember going to Buckland Abbey, Haytor, Dartmead, Exeter Museum. Used to go over to Paynton on the seafront.
That must have been quite rare then, really, for a primary school to do that much. Doesn't do that much now.
It was sponsored by 2 or 3, people in the village. Used to sponsor these for us. Other than that, didn't seem to go out that much. No, you spent most of your time here on the farm. Because father was working most weekends, and you went out in the fields. Spent a lot of time out in the fields, and obviously used to ride on the tractor. Even when I was 5, 6 or 7, used to spend a day riding on the tractor. I mean, it was legal then. And your life was very much around what was going on the farm.
Years ago, originally, way before the war, we used to take the cattle in the summer up to the Brent Moors, up to South Brent. And so you would start off, somebody would come with Portsmouth with 3 or 4 bullocks, and they come along and they pick up some from Mr. Tripp. They were all branded, marked on the horns, because most of them had horns, and pick up some from the farms here in Praw, and you worked your way on, and you would pick up some down at Chivellstone, and you would be gathering drovers, so they walked them from here to South Brent, and they had fields where they would walk so far and then leave the cattle in a field overnight and then go back the next day and walk them on further on. I don't know, I think it used to take about 3 days, I think, to get to South Brent from here. So then the cattle spent the summer up South Brent, up on the moors, and then they brought them back again in the autumn.
Kingsbridge Show used to be quite a big event where we used to show the grain, and years ago Kingsbridge Show used to have growing crops, where the judges came around before Kingsbridge Show and looked at your various crops, and you were awarded prizes for the best field of grass seeds, or the best field of sugar beet, or the best field of cauliflowers, depending on what classes you'd entered in. We were lucky enough to win the cup for the most points on several occasions. It's not only sheep we used to show, we used to show grain, and we used to show our mangoes as well. And we used to keep our own mango seeds. We'd go out in the crop of mangoes and walk them and pick out the best ones that we wanted to take in to the part of the vegetable garden for seed. And we'd pick out about 300 mangoes out of a crop of 4 acres. Completely look after them individually and bring them in here and then replant them in the vegetable garden and then save the seed the following year. And that seed is still up there, what remains of it in a bag. But they were really specialist mangoes. We were never beaten in the show ring for our mangoes. But that there again, it took a lot of work, I'd be up here like until midnight some nights, cleaning them up, ready to show a few days later.
In County Show, we heard from Harry Kurzweil, Jill Kurzweil, David Dark, Phil Dark, David Wall, Mark Wall, Richard Foss, John Sherrill, Jean Sherrill, Roger Tucker, John Tucker, Bill Salter, and Marjorie Buckpitt. Living Off the Land was produced by Lucinda Guy for Sound Art Radio in partnership with South Devon Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, and was supported by the Heritage Lottery Fund as part of All Our Stories.